9. It's what Thomas Tuchel says to his wife when she asks whether Kyle Walker can be her new personal trainer. It's also one of the most important positions in the England side. Currently, it's held down by the country's leading goal scorer of all time, Sir Harold Asamoah Kane. A man with over 400 career goals, now at least one piece of silverware, and one of the first names on the team sheet. What about England's next generation? The likes of Cole Palmer, Ethan Nwaneri, Kobbie Mainoo, and Miles Lewis-Skelly. There's just one small problem with that. None of them are strikers. The number 9 is a dying breed in England's national team. Well, what exactly has happened? Kurva. Look, I'm just going to clear up the elephant in the room. This elephant is in a different room. Don't worry about all that noise, though, because we can still get me. The sunglasses still outside, bruv. Narin is in the place. Now, I want to start today's video with an apology. I released a video about Italy's national team being was recently, and in that, a picture was used of Francesco Kamada, a young 16-year-old striker. For fuck's sake, no, not that geezer. This man is not Japanese. Kamada. I don't think he is anyway. If he is, then honestly, congratulations. What I'm trying to say is I wouldn't do that for other players, all right? We have a level of professionalism on the FNG Limited TV Enterprises Corporation channel. Barca fans, don't worry. I've got you with Rafinha. Real Madrid fans, I've got you with Rodrigo. Milan fans, don't stress, all right? I know who my nan is. For more football knowledge, please subscribe. At 750k subscribers, I'm testing out my knee injury, and if we get 7,000 likes on this video, I'll change my nationality to Italian. I'll probably get into the starting 11 as a striker, to be fair. Today, though, we're not talking about Italian strikers, we're talking about English ones. As last week, England lost 3-1 to Senegal. Senegal, am I right?
You know.
And to be honest, the overall consensus was, why the fuck are we watching international football? Have we ever interacted with a female before? But for those that watched the performance, it was very disappointing. It was the first time we'd ever lost to an African team in footballing history, apparently. I don't see how that's true, but allegedly. And it had left Tommy Robinson quite evidently in disarray. Oh, that's what you look like anyway after the jail. Jesus Christ. Nicholas Jackson couldn't be stopped when England's defenders tried to tackle him in the penalty area.
Look at this graph! Look at it!
Bukayo Saka turns into a completely different man when it's time to play for England under Thomas Tuchel. Kyle Walker was left disappointed when he realised it wasn't Senegal. And even Oluwa Declan Rice was unable to save us from defeat here.
Oluwa Dec.
The culture is having an effect on this guy, and I absolutely love it. Cole Palmer confused when he walked into the bedroom.
Why is everyone black?
Now, as I said, this was a disappointing performance. We created very little according to the stat sheet and according to the eye test as well. It was an uninspiring 90-minute display. This after only managing to put one goal past part-time football team, past part-time country, part-time ski resort, Andorra. To put it into perspective, Jadon Sancho ended a 41-year-old man's career the last time we played them. These lot aren't used to playing below like 11 kilometers above sea level. Jordan Henderson will be lucky if he gets a sea level, to be fair, bruv. I'm giving that man an F-. Furthermore, why is he even getting called up anymore? Bro's been to Saudi Arabia, been kicked out of Saudi Arabia. Do you know how washed you need to be for that to happen? It was nice to see Thogden get an international call-up though, and we all know how much he loves Saudi Arabia.
Where's the after party?
Big market?
No. Saudi Arabia.
Anyway, the point of this video is not to slander Jordan Henderson. It's not to expose Kyle Walker. He does enough of that on his own. It's to talk about our attacking options, and you might be confused, to be honest with you, seeing this video. Apart from the fact that we haven't created that much in recent games, you might be wondering, yeah, but Niran, personnel-wise, bro, we're cooking. We've got the likes of Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Jude Bellingham, and Trent Alexander-Arnold creating chances for the likes of Harry Kane, who, as I mentioned, is the country's greatest goal scorer of all time. And then on the bench, you've got Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa, who grabbed 16 goals and 8 assists for Villa this season, as well as 19 goals and 15 assists for Villa last season. You've even got a third choice striker in Ivan Toney, who, yes, is in Saudi Arabia at the moment, but went there off the back of a ridiculous run for his least favourite football club. We're clearly underperforming the talent that we have, both in terms of creating chances, but also then putting them away. But what if I was to tell you, we might have to get get used to this. England's under-21s have travelled to the European Championships in Slovakia this summer. They've got one recognised striker, and if he walked down the street, half of you wouldn't even recognise him. That striker being League One forward Jay Stansfield, who's just helped Birmingham get promoted. He's definitely a solid goal scorer, I think, of the future, but he's already 22. He scored 19 goals in a league where he cost £20 million, which is completely unheard of for League One. To be honest with you, probably underperformed given the expectations and the money used to sign him, but he's still a decent striker. That is it though. Liam Delap was part of the preliminary squad originally, but after joining Chelsea from Ipswich for like 30 odd million pounds, he decided that he wanted to prioritise the Club World Cup instead, and that means that we are in essence doing up false nines for the Euros under-21s, which is not an inherent problem, and we'll get onto it in a second, but the fact that there's not a single striker even around the 20 to 26 range in terms of age that we could actually call upon and be like confident for England is a little bit of a concern. So let's go through all the players that are considered forward options for this England under-21 side. First of all, Tom Fellows, wide player for West Brom. Then we've got Jonathan Rowe, who's taken the number 9, wide player for Marseille. I don't mean wide as in like they're big or wham or like built like a shed, just in case anyone would. James McAtee from Man City, honestly more of an attacking midfielder but can also play wide. Amari Hutchinson, wide. Samuel Illing Jr., wide. Jay Stansfield, who I mentioned, is actually a striker. Harvey Elliott, wide or shadow striker. Ethan Wanyeri, wherever he fancies when he wakes up in the morning. Other people linked with going to the tournament, the likes of Jamie Gittins, winger. Jayden Philogene, winger. Tyler Dibbling, kind of creative, like second striker and or winger. Noni Madueke, winger. Joe Gelhardt, I guess he's kind of a striker, but honestly, I don't even really know. Samuel Edozie, winger. It's worth noting, by the way, I'm not saying that there's no English strikers. I just said earlier, yeah, Harry Kane, Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins. That's actually pretty solid as striking options. It was great for the last tournament. Even outside the squad, you've got Jared Bowen, who can play down the middle. You've got Dominic Solanke, who had a big money move to Tottenham, has been a little bit unfortunate with injuries and performance this season, but he's still a competent striker. We saw that at Bournemouth. To be fair, his performances were bad. He's allegedly a striker. Now that's better than what one Marseille striker is allegedly. I'm talking about the next gen, basically, rather than guys that are like in their prime now, and I just feel like there's not really anyone to get excited about, and it might seem harsh. There are a couple of young strikers who will go on to play in the Premier League, but there's no one that's going to be world class in my opinion. Even with the under-19 squad, you could argue 2 of them are strikers, okay? We've got Sam Amayor, who is a winger. You've got Mikey Moore, who's a wide player. Tom Watson, who's just signed for Brighton. And then after that, in terms of the actual strikers, you've got Ethan Wheatley, who just went out on loan to League 2 Walsall for Manchester United and played 4 times. He's 19, still early, but it's not like he's not showing anything that would indicate he's the next Harry Kane. And then in fairness, you've got Shim Meyuka, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, 17-year-old from Chelsea, who is in fairness out and out striker. And I'm not gonna lie, he might be the only player that I'm relatively convinced on out of the strikers that could really even come close to filling Harry Kane's shoes. And he's still very early on in his career, but very like talented young clinical finisher. A relatively consistent goal scorer at youth level with 6 goals in 10 for the under-17s. He also became Chelsea's youngest ever player to play in Europe for them when he came on in a win against Copenhagen. An interesting story about him, his parents, like, you know, to avoid conflict and stuff, actually fled from where they were living, being Birmingham. So as I said, he's like genuinely an option. Tottenham have a couple of options in Dane Scarlett, who I just feel like would have broken into Tottenham's team by now if he really had the minerals, especially given how bad Tottenham were at the end of last season. Will Lancashire is another option who I actually think is a tiny bit better than Dane Scarlett. They're both solid enough strikers, but I don't know if either of them will pick up more than 10 caps for England. We're not overflowing with options is what I'm trying to say. Until Shim Meyuka literally like spawned this season, I thought about making this video ages ago actually, because there was genuinely absolutely nobody. At least we've got a slight chance with him. It's like the Sahara Desert out here. Senegal, they've actually got desert over there, and they've got more striking options than we do. If you look through the Next Gen award for like 2024 and you take a look at some of the wonder kids that are in that, you've got a lot of strikers in there. So it's not like strikers are, or young strikers are, dying breed completely. A solid like, I think 20%, 25% of the list were just out and out strikers. You had the likes of Amara Diouf, who plays in Senegal for Generation Foot, Agustin Roberto from River Plate, Charalampos Kostoulis, who plays for Olympiakos, Chido Obi, who ironically plays in England but for Manchester United, but he's Danish, Francesco Kamada of AC AC Milan. Mark Guiu from Chelsea. Stefanos Simas, who plays for Brighton on loan at Nuremberg. George Iledekena from Monaco. Endrick, of course, from Real Madrid. Ian Subiabre of River Plate. Samu of Porto. Spoiler alert, none of these men are English. Not a single one of them was born in Croydon, mate. When Harry Kane, who himself is going to be nearly 33 years of age by the time the World Cup's coming around, which is, you know, it's getting there for a striker. It's not old, but he's at least thinking about printing out a senior citizenship card. You got Robert Lewandowski still banging at like 38 these times. You're going to need to start getting phased out soon, or not relied upon anyway. When he was asked who the future of England's number 9 is, he chose Kai Rooney, pretty much because he's the son of Wayne Rooney, who is 14 years of age. He was convinced by that Snapchat that he posted when he said that he scored loads of goals. Speaking of which, Harold, why do you have Kai Rooney on Snap?
You know you can be prosecuted for that.
So why exactly is this happening? Honestly, there doesn't seem to be like one coherent reason. I haven't really been able to find anything apart from what I can only assume was just where kind of being a striker wasn't that cool amongst coaches. It's not good enough to just be like a poacher anymore. We're never gonna see Pipo Inzaghi ever again, okay? You can't just be a number 9. You've kind of got to be techie. And there was a point where we weren't producing any technical players whatsoever. I think then a shift, especially at places like Manchester City and Arsenal, happened to try and be coaching youngsters into being a more techie individual. There was more of a focus on movement, interchange, being able to quickly build up play and stuff, and producing people like Phil Foden, Cole Palmer's, Bukayo Saka's, rather than the next Harry Kane. I think being a striker is kind of cool again. I think we've definitely had a bit of a shift over like the last 5-10 years, and I do think we've seen a little bit of a movement recently back to at least the ideology of having an out-and-out striker. Manchester City have packed in having a false 9 all the time and have Erling Haaland now. Arsenal are crying out for a striker. It's the reason they didn't win the league, and I think Mikel Arteta's finally realised that. The continued goal-scoring prowess of Harry Kane and Robert Lewandowski, even in their older years. The emergence of people like Samu, who plays for Porto, who's going to get another big move soon. People like Liam Delap being snapped up by Chelsea, who in fairness, by the way, I have kind of overlooked really in this video, is definitely an option there. But crucially, one thing that I think has definitely been like taught to us this season is kind of anything can work. If you want to have a big striker that is known for scoring, you can make it work. But alternatively, if you want to do a PSG and, you know, mold Ousmane Dembele into a false 9, that can also work. I would be a little bit concerned with England in the sense I don't think we have a load of candidates that can become an Ousmane Dembele false 9 type of player, but at least the possibility is there. I'm making this video discussing this because I've seen a lot of discourse online about the state of England strikers, you know, for the future. But like at the same time, if you look at places like Spain and Germany, it's not much better. Spain are gonna be a very scary team at like the next 6 major tournaments. Do they have a recognized striker? No. I mean, they again, Samu, you know, could be, but they easily do the job with people like Ferran Torres or Mikel Oyarzabal, getting goals when they need to. Yamal and Nico Williams were very direct wingers. And my overall conclusion is that there is absolutely, categorically, in comparison to years gone by, a massive lack of strikers in the like 25 downwards range. I would honestly say there are 2 candidates right now that could take on Harry Kane's mantle, and that's about it. And I'm not even like totally sold on either of them to do the job that's required. Liam Delap has absolutely got potential, and ironically his younger teammate Shim Meuka at Chelsea is probably another one in terms of a proper young under 18 wonder kid talent that maybe has the minerals if his progression continues and he continues to get opportunities at Chelsea. But it's absolutely by no means a surefire. The hope that we can take though from that, football isn't the same as it was 30 years ago when we had like Teddy Sheringham, Alan Shearer, Andy Cole, strikers just coming out of our asses, because the game isn't that anymore. You only need one striker first of all, and half of the teams don't even need that. I think the main worry that I would have is who's going to fill in as that sort of false 9, Ferran Torres, Ousmane Dembele like alternative. Arguably maybe that's more of a concern than who could just be a natural number 9. But a second bit of hope is Harry Kane never actually seemed like he was going to be that either. The guy was on crazy loan spells. He barely played for Tottenham by the age of like 21. He was very much a late bloomer, and now he's one of the best strikers that we've ever had. So the conclusion is, be a little bit worried. I'm hoping someone comes out of the woodworks that can actually do that false 9 role like efficiently, or that Liam Delap just becomes amazing. That's basically what we have to hope for at the moment, because in 7 or 8 years we won't be able to rely on Kane, Watkins and Toney, and we're going to need someone else to pick up the pieces. Hopefully, you know, coaches, youth coaches in this country are continuing to push players who want to be strikers into just being selfish strikers, because you still do need that in the world of football today. What do you make of England's striking options? Are we going to be all right once Harold Emmanuel Kane moves on? I don't know why I keep giving him a different middle name all the time. Drop it down below though, and what you think about England recently as well, because it's been a bit of a shaky start to Thomas Tuchel's life at the Three Lions. If you enjoyed this video though, feel free to slap a like on it. Of course, subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at officialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.